Alright, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to our second episode of Flavor Text Podcast, the show where we go on and on about things people should not care about, but we care so very deeply about. We talk about WoW lore here, people, and today we are going over the novellas that came out shortly before the expansion dropped. And we may work our way toward the first couple of missions in Battle for Azeroth. So, with me, as always, the whole 2 times that we've done this are Unusual Renegade, and to my right and below, we have Nalek DB. Be sure to follow both of those gents if you have not already. Let's see. And guys, how you enjoying Battle for Azeroth?
It's a lot of fun. I mean, I think part of it for me is like just having new content in general is such a nice thing. Because I've experienced so many content droughts in this game, with end of Warlords of Draenor, end of Mist of Pandaria, and end of Legion a little bit. It's always like a breath of fresh air having new content. And the caliber of the content this time around is extraordinary. The zones are beautiful. The music is really good. I love all the art. The art team did an excellent job with this expansion. And I do have to say, it feels like the writing for the expansion itself is significantly better than the writing was for the pre-patch of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've been really impressed with the writing, the design, pretty much anything from a developmental standpoint has blown it out of the water. I feel like with Battle for Azeroth. Nalek, you're an old vet of WoW, and previously your favorite expansion was Wrath of the Lich King. I don't know if anything's changed about that.
Yeah, I don't know if you can beat that one personally. I mean, come on. I spent so much of my life wanting to kill Arthas. I spent so that was the thing for Wrath. Wrath had, what's the best way to put this? Wrath didn't have to try to develop a bad guy.
Yeah, the bad guy in Wrath had already had 3 games of development from the Warcraft series.
Right. I mean, he existed. Everyone hated him. You played as Arthas. You knew how much you hated him. So that was, to me, that expansion wrote itself, and because of that history, I think we're not even a week in, so who knows. But right now, it's still my favorite. Last expansion, I'd probably call it my second favorite. I'd probably call Legion my second favorite expansion. It beats out narrowly Warlords of Draenor, actually. For everybody who hates Warlords, I actually feel like it was a solid expansion. I think the problem with Warlords was just the pacing of the content. I think they released content too quickly, and then at the end ended up with nothing for, 2 years, year and a half to lead into the next expansion.
I think the big thing with Warlords was that it felt really lacking in content. Like, the content that was there was good. It just, we got to the end, and it was like, okay, that's it, kind of thing. Because almost every expansion before that has had at least 2 raid tiers, or at least 2 extra raid tiers, in addition to whatever it started with. And Warlords of Draenor had 1 content patch, which was really lacking in comparison to previous.
In all of the expansions previous to it, I'm trying to make sure I remember correctly, but in all of the expansions before Warlords, even after the final end game raid, they threw you a bone, basically. They gave you this little extra raid, whether it was a little 10-man, or Ruby Sanctum, if you remember in
they did do that a lot. Yeah.
They give you something a little extra just to hold you over. It's like, they're just making sure you don't starve to death before you get your next meal.
Yeah. Well, I think that trend honestly started with Mist of Pandaria, because we were sitting in Siege of Orgrimmar for 2 years.
Okay, that's true. Okay, so Siege is one of those expansions I quit. I did Siege of Orgrimmar for the first month, and then I was like, Guys, deuces. I'm out. I think I was also in grad school, and so
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
But back to current content.
Mhm.
One thing that I've really enjoyed about Battle for Azeroth is like, so Legion did a really good job of making the player character feel really cool again. Like they played up the individual class fantasy. You got these really cool quests to go on. You got these really cool weapons to play with. So like they did a really good job of making the character feel really cool, really awesome. I think Battle for Azeroth takes that and makes the world feel really cool again. I feel like Battle for Azeroth did a really good job of making the world feel like a place worth exploring,
Yeah.
a place worth going out and like doing stuff. And it's really like it brings the game back to its roots sort of, because like in Legion at the end of Legion we're going off into space. We're going to Argus. We're slaying this giant massive enemy that has haunted us for years. And then in Battle for Azeroth we're back down to earth and we're helping farmers like take back their city and fight off like evil, like angry wildlife and sort of stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's really bringing it back down to like, you know, these are the mundane issues that we have to deal with to actually take care of our world.
Yeah.
I think it's really funny in some of the question content, and I'm not quite done with Alliance yet. I've done the Horde content. I just, even though I took so much time off this week, just things happen, you get busy, and I haven't been able to finish yet. But the thing that I found humorous is they finally sort of start to acknowledge that. Like in one of the quests, I can specifically remember when I read the text, it was like the whoever it was I was helping, equivalent, basically a farmer. I don't know what they actually were, but a typical person was getting me to help them do some mundane thing, and like my character's response is, so I guess y'all didn't hear about me killing the Lich King here.
There was one moment specifically that I really liked was, you guys done the Akunda quest line in Vol'jin?
Yes.
There's a moment where like after you do it and you go up to him and he's like, okay, like you have to name yourself as Akunda the something because that's what they do, and like one of the options is, I defeated the Burning Legion. You seriously haven't heard of me?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, they're finally sort of poking fun at the fact. Like I've always one I come back to is from last expansion, or actually it was the pre-patch for Legion, and the invasion started. So all these invasions are going on, and there's this moment where Khadgar pulls you away from invasions to go find a book in Karazhan.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me, Khadgar, is that you are pulling me off, a champion of Azeroth, of defending the world from the Burning Legion, to get a book from your house. That's what you need me to do right now? Come on. So they're finally sort of poking fun at that whole thing, like all the accomplishments that player characters have done, and they're still being asked to do poop quests.
Yeah, so like my favorite part of the little that I played of Legion was how different all of not the world, everybody had the same content except for the class content.
Yeah.
I love how each class got to really just bask in the glory that was their chosen main. And it just went all out. My favorite part of this so far, and I've said it several times, I'm going to say it on the podcast, I love how you have that same thing, except it's faction.
Yeah.
I mean, Zandalar and Kul Tiras are so vastly different that, I mean, you've got two completely different stories. You have to play both factions in this expansion.
Yeah.
It's really
and it's
nice.
Like, you still get to experience the other continent as whatever faction you are, but like you experience it in a very different way. You experience it
as an invader.
Lens. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
which is really interesting because that's something that is like not presented as much for the player character. Like like you're very clearly invading this land.
Yeah,
and like doing it.
Like I was doing one where I was off to assassinate a blood elf. Like,
yeah,
that was the quest line I was on. It's not spoilers or anything, but
no,
all right.
That's still pretty spectacular, though. In I've always played both sides, and it's like last expansion when I'm doing the heart of the Naru stuff, and you find the heart, Khadgar find it, he's like, hey, you need to take this to Velen. I'm like, okay. Well, I did it as Alliance first, so I didn't think anything of just walking into the Exodar and asking Velen about this heart of the Naru. We didn't know what it was at the time, this light-bound object.
Yeah.
But then I did it Horde side, and I was like, oh, this will be interesting. Wait, we're just going to do the exact same thing?
Yeah.
I'm just going to walk in as an orc into the Exodar, and Velen's going to be like, hey, how are you? Come help us do this thing. What?
Yeah. And see, like, I find it interesting also that all of us as players, we're still sort of that, like, we are above the conflict in that our main goal, even though we don't see a lot of it, is that we've got to heal Azeroth. And whether we're Horde or Alliance. But the fact is, Anduin and Sylvanas don't care.
Yep.
Like, Anduin maybe cares, but Sylvanas doesn't give a crap.
No,
she legit.
Dwarf. Nobody's listening to the Crystal Dwarf.
Yeah, like Sylvanas straight up says, "You're a champion of Azeroth. That's great, as long as your first loyalty is to me and the Horde." And, like, I don't.
Petty
like
squabbling.
Yeah, but okay.
I actually do still really like Sylvanas. I'm just gonna. It's such an unpopular opinion right now. I still really like Sylvanas.
Okay, so I would say that it is not an apparently the people that hang out on my channel still love Sylvanas, and it annoys the mess out of me.
I think
she's horrible.
I think it's gotten better now that the novellas are made public and people have access to that lore, because I think a lot of the big backlash was people seeing what was in game and reacting harshly to that, because what was in game was not everything.
Well, as a Horde player that was not present when she decided to burn it, that's as much information as my character has anyway.
That's fair.
But all right, we need to start talking about the novellas. Speaking of the novellas, A Good War is a retelling of the War of Thorns, mostly from Saurfang's perspective. It begins by Sylvanas coming to him and explaining that with Azerite, war is inevitable and we need to make the first strike so that we can sort of get the upper hand in this inevitable war. And he believes it, he goes along with it, and they decide that Teldrassil is going to be their first goal, their first target.
Before we move on from that, I think we should address a couple things that happened in the beginning of it.
Okay.
Where, particularly how she sort of talks to Saurfang about the inevitability of it, because she talks a lot about like the grudges that are held between the two sides.
She has to convince him, because he is not convinced at first that a war with the Alliance can be won.
He's also like, he's very clear, like, hey, like we just fought Burning Legion, we have peace, let's cherish this peace for a little bit. He comes along begrudgingly, but then I don't know, I don't follow his logic, but the author just sort of explains it away as he sees the inevitability and just sees how genius she is to recognize this.
Well, he's right though. I mean, it's absolutely it's a tenuous piece that will last just long enough for, that I don't want to get political, so I'm not going to, but it's that influx of patriotism that comes after a major conflict, a major attack, when a nation bonds together around something for a little while and suddenly everything feels great for a little while, but a few years down the line when that has faded, what always comes back is that original conflict that is so deep-seated that it's too deep a wound.
Right. Yeah. So they decide that the plan is to sack Darnassus, to hold it captive, so that the inner workings of the Alliance eventually break apart. Their prediction is that Tyrande Whisperwind is going to want to save Darnassus. whereas Gang Greymane is going to want revenge on Sylvanas directly in Undercity, and all of that conflict is going to make the Alliance fragile and make them easy pickings. So
I think it's interesting the way she makes that argument with Gen, though. Where it's like, you think Gen is going to let Anduin go off to save Darnassus when the Alliance didn't come save Gilneas?
Yeah.
That's an interesting argument to be made.
It turns out to be wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I can understand her reasoning behind it, though, because of her interactions with Gin up to this point has been purely him acting on his grudge against the Forsaken.
She underestimates the goody two-shoesness of the Alliance, though. Like, she underestimates how much they believe in the power of friendship.
One thing that I think is interesting is I think there's a part when she's talking to Saurfang at the beginning and talking about, like, you know, the inevitability of the war, where she talks about Azerite and is like, hey, if we have this peace for this long and the Azerite remains unrestricted, what's going to happen when that peace ends and people have had this time to develop whatever with this Azerite? So it almost seems like she's making an argument like, if we don't start this war now, somebody's going to make a nuke and kill all of us with Azerite.
Yeah. She's making the George W. Bush argument.
I mean, because of what inevitably happens, though, I have this quote that I sort of marked out that I wanted to come back to, even though I haven't finished them. But she says, when she's talking to Saurfang, and forgive a relatively long quote, if you want your enemy to bleed to death, you inflict a wound you cannot heal. That is why I need you to make a plan, High Overlord. The moment our strike begins, there'll be no turning back. We can divide the Alliance only if we can divide the Alliance only if the war to conquer Darnassus does not unite them against us. That only happens if the Horde wins an honorable victory, and I am not blind. The Horde does not trust me to wage war that way.
Yeah.
She acknowledges it needs to be an honorable victory if you're gonna, one, unite the Horde, two, keep the Alliance from uniting completely against you.
And see, like, I think that is her posturing to get him on her side.
Yeah, I could see that too.
Because
it's interesting.
Throughout this, okay, so we're just going to talk generally about the novella. If you haven't read it, go read it. But we're going to be skipping around to different parts. But throughout the A Good War, her motivation is to kill Malfurion Stormrage.
Yeah.
And towards the end, I wasn't able to find the exact line, but there is a line that indicates that she saw something when she touched Azerite. That, I mean, her motivations are not another war with the Alliance. Her motivations are not, my free meeting will end in 10 minutes. Please upgrade to a paid account. What? For unlimited minutes.
What?
That's Zoom. I didn't know that was a thing. Okay, it looks like we're in. Well, I'll upgrade to Pro. It's fine. Anyway, her motivations are not to just start another war. She wants to prevent. Like, she sees a further threat and she wants to prevent it. And I think there's something needed to happen. Malfurion being alive ruins her plan somehow. Like, she was so hell-bent on killing him.
Well, there's a moment near the end, I think on like the last page of the novella, where because she tells, like, her whole goal is like Nalik was saying, inflicting a wound that will not heal, and like she sees Malfurion's death as something that would accomplish that.
Yeah.
And then at the end, like on the last page of the novella, like Saurfang shows up and she's like, well, where's Malfurion's head? And he's like, well, it's still attached to his body, probably in Stormwind. He's like, and Sylvanas is like, you didn't kill him?
Yeah.
And so that's like the big motivating point of why she decides to burn the tree, which is really, really not displayed in the game, which
but
makes me angry.
That goes against their original plan. Like, her plan was to strike the wound by killing Malfurion, but to capture Darnassus to hold it hostage. What if,
Right.
I mean, she, at the end of the War of Thorns, they have no hostage. The Alliance, I mean, the thing that they said they were trying to avoid happened.
Yeah.
Like, they united the Alliance against them. So I don't know. Her motivations are all over the place. I think some of them are hidden. I just, whew.
I think part of it is like there's her plan was to like inflict a wound they want to heal and like destroy the hope of the Alliance, and then she has that conversation with the elf and the Warbringers, and she's like, "You can't kill hope," and she's like, "Well, let me try."
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she used that language previously in talking of what she needed to do.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that was used again. I was trying to find it, and while we're talking about this, you talked about her motivations are all over the place. In the novella, it talks about at one point how when he talked about, I think it's right after that quote I just used, and it says, "And she was right." You know, orcs are normally the one running into war. That's Sourfang's MO. Runs into battle. That's what he does. Whereas Sylvanas is an in the shadows type of person, manipulating from afar. I think that's what she's still doing.
Yeah.
I think she's got this face of, oh wait, this meeting has been upgraded by the host. Awesome.
Yeah. I just.
What is that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think at some point or another, you're going to see what her true motivations are. I think they're still in the shadows. I think we still don't know exactly what she's doing.
Yeah. I also continually overestimate NPCs in their competence. I mean, like, she is just like the rest of us. She's having to find answers as she goes along.
Yeah.
I think we often make that mistake, but yeah.
I think we're gonna get a lot of insight into that in the coming weeks with the Battle for Azeroth content. There's something on Horde side where it continues the story of Vol'jin, and you find him in spirits, I guess. I haven't played through it. I saw there was a Wowhead article on it recently.
I know we talked to Bonsomde a lot.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that's going to provide some insight on that, because it was Vol'jin's decision to make Sylvanas war chief because the Loa told him to. So I'm really hoping that they build on that a little bit, and we find out why.
Yeah, there's some sort of prophecy playing out here.
Yeah, and I just because you said that, I decided to look it up because I missed any of that entirely.
Well, I think it's something that's coming out at like weekly right now.
Because currently, what has happened, after Zalazane returns as an undead and attacks the Echo Isles, Princess Talanji offers to bring the ashes of Warchief Vol'jin to Atal-Dazar. So that's where it stops. That's all we know. That's what's available now.
Okay. So they have Vol'jin's ashes.
Yeah, they have an urn. There's even a picture on the wiki article.
Okay. All right.
So
cool.
who knows what that'll mean?
Hopefully we'll get some insight on that then.
Ooh, could we get a Forsaken Vol'jin as the leader of the Horde?
Well, he's in ashes, so I don't know how that would work.
Return spirit. Hey, Thanos got a new body. It's even referenced in the novella. Saurfang never asked how Nathanos got his new body. He probably didn't want to know. I mean, so that's a thing. Soul transference.
That is fair.
I don't like undead. I'm prejudiced.
That's fair.
But
Right. Anything else in the novellas?
Yeah, I mean, like, we could talk about elegy. Most of the elegy was told from the perspective of characters we don't know as much about.
Yeah.
There was a couple of Malfurion scenes, a couple Anduin and a couple Tyrande, but most of it was from a couple of night elves that were fighting on the battlefield, and
I think
one
most of it
blood
was
elf that was
Deladrin's
fighting.
point of view. It looked like most of it was from Deladrin's point of
Yeah,
view.
who was the elf that talked to Sylvanas. as
in
she,
the cinematic, yeah.
as she
So
would die.
it basically because for the most part the Alliance leaders weren't there except for Tyrande
Malfurion.
and Malfurion.
Yeah, Tyrande wasn't there
we
most of
had
the
to-
time.
Yeah, exactly. We had to deal with the point of view of characters we don't know about, but
Yeah.
it lets you know what happened. At least I hesitate to even call it Alliance side. It's Night Elf side.
Right.
Yeah.
From what I was able to do. It's
Yeah,
like,
and
this is what happened inside.
Yeah, a good bit of it took place in Stormwind as well, and that's where we sort of saw the counter side to Sylvanas' assumption that Greymane and Whisperwind would never be able to agree on where to attack, because Greymane straight up tells her, if they capture Darnassus, we're going to help you.
Yeah.
And so again, she underestimates the power of friendship.
Yeah, I think I think she thinks Gin Greymane is a much worse person than he actually is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and also she is so selfish that it seems like it would just be a foreign concept to her.
I think that's what it is. I think at this point in her existence, it is impossible for her to see the potential for good in people anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas at one time she was almost literally the embodiment of it.
Yeah. And we're sort of getting that juxtaposition because Anduin is so pure and innocent
goody.
still. Yeah. You don't like Anduin?
I don't know. I'm
I
Look,
wish
he's
I had
not
been
his
around
daddy.
enough to learn about Variant. I came in and he was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you also didn't have to deal with chasing Anduin's crazy butt around freaking Pandaria as he's just going rogue, doing whatever the hell he wants, because, the Prince of Stormwind can pretend to be somebody else. Freaking white pawn, making us spend our valuable time chasing him, selfish little kid. Welcome to Stormwind, citizen. Have you seen my father? Sorry, frustrating.
Malik has some strong feelings about Anduin.
Anduin has been frustrating since he was an 8-year-old kid dealing with Bolvar and Lady Prestor.
Who was actually
Anixia.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All right. Is there anything else from the novellas that we want to touch on?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think they pretty much stand on their own. There's not a whole lot to extrapolate.
Yeah, they're really good. Go read them.
Yeah.
A good war, I would say, is super great. It's just great.
I'm gonna finish them this week, and I've got the first. Since we were talking about it, I've got the first novels now, the first compendium, so I'm reading through those as well.
Nice.
So I'm gonna slowly catch up with all of the novels finally.
Right. Okay. So.
All right. We want to talk about the Siege of Lordaeron.
Siege of Lordaeron. So, Sylvanas spurs Anduin to action. And he gets all of his buddies and goes off on what turns out to be one of the more disappointing missions I've had.
Then?
Yeah.
Have you guys played it from both sides?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the, starting out right off the bat, they completely gloss over the fact that the Alliance destroys Brill and carves that massive dead scar into Lordaeron, which is very similar to the dead scar in Ghostlands and Evermoon.
That's kind of interesting considering the last time that Sylvanas was part of a siege like that was the scar that was put into Silvermoon.
Yeah. So that would have been interesting to play.
Yeah.
Because right now not right now, but during the pre-patch we saw too much evil from Sylvanas.
Yeah.
And too much good from Anduin and the Alliance.
And the fact that Brill is completely destroyed and razed to the ground is clearly the Alliance is doing some bad stuff here too.
Yeah.
It's just glossed over and not really.
And they sort of heap that on the shoulders of Greymane, he's the old war dog, and
I think Greymane is the Alliance's
scapegoat.
morally ambiguous character.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
is, and because he's a werewolf, it makes it easy.
Yeah.
What I wanted in this whole siege and from both sides, I want to talk about. I realize I always come back to Sylvanas, but the game is pointing it this way.
Yeah.
I think you're right with then they talk about the Azerite and how she saw something and how she's doing everything she's doing from the perspective of whatever it is she saw when she touched the Azerite.
Yeah.
I think the flaw there is that it can still only work with the knowledge she already has.
Yeah.
She had no way of anticipating Jaina.
Yep. Because if Jaina had not been there, she would have killed the Alliance leaders. Illyria
Yes.
might have been able to save them, but she also didn't know Illyria was going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. But
So
Illyria probably didn't have, one, she didn't have the ship. She can't cast teleport. I mean, she got in there somehow. That means she can get out. But yeah, if Jaina had not been there, Anduin and Greymane would be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt. And okay, so during the Siege of Lordaeron, obviously, Sylvanas unleashes her Forsaken alchemy concoction
Yeah.
on her
Light.
own forces first.
Not the first time that's happened.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's really like
We saw that at the Wrathgate.
A lot of people. Well, Wrathgate wasn't her.
No, it wasn't her.
I mean, fair, but yeah, yeah.
But she saw the potential for it there.
Yeah.
And so she unleashes it, kills many horde, and on their way to killing. And did anyone else get the sense that the only people that were prepared for that were the undead?
I mean,
Actually, I got the
Probably.
impression that the only people prepared for that were Sylvanas and Nathanos.
Well, I mean, like,
I'll be-
the undead knew what to do. They had masks, and they were ready to go with the actual, like, they're like flamethrowers for the blight. But
I mean, to be fair, like the Forsaken have been dealing with the blight,
yeah,
throughout their entire.
they have like an
storyline.
alchemy faction that
like-
sort of does that, right?
Pretty much, almost every single Forsaken storyline, questline in the game
Is about whether
to
or not
deal
we
with the blight.
is about whether or not we release this blight.
Well, and even like beyond that, just like developing it and
Yeah.
testing it. Like
Yep.
there are whole quest lines where you test it on like Alliance captives and Scarlet captives and stuff like that. So they're like this is really nothing new from the Forsaken. It's just like a lot of times it's been
It's
sort of
part of their
off to the
everyday
side.
life. It's
Yeah.
literally a part of their everyday life.
Right. And there's just, I don't know, there's just this utter, like, disregard, because Sylvanas is straight up, I'm gonna res them anyway, so whatever, it doesn't matter if they die.
That's true. It builds her forces.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing. Is like I think this is the first time we've seen her cast necromancy magic on this scale before.
That's true. That is very true.
Which is
But I think
interesting.
that's also building up, because if you go the flip side, who right now I feel like is the counterpart, Jaina. I know it should be Sylvanas and Anduin, but it's not, or Sylvanas and Gen, but it's not. They're playing it as Sylvanas and Jaina. Jaina is casting a level of arcane and frost magic like we have never seen.
Yeah, they're really playing up the power of those two characters, and even like honestly, even Anduin, not necessarily in the siege, but in the Battle for Azeroth trailer, the first cinematic they released, like his mass resurrection of the Alliance forces, like that's a level of power with the light that we haven't seen from him before.
Also, in that one, the thing that really caught me with that, less than his mass resurrection, less than he put up a shield at one point.
Yeah.
It was sort of
It was like
vague
a
whether
dome
shield
Yeah.
of resurrection
It was-
/ shield, yeah.
Yeah, but he also, at one point, just unleashes a shockwave. Like, he goes full-on warrior abilities at one point. And so it's like, and it's always been like those characters, the boss level characters, the hero level characters, they're sort of mixes of abilities.
Yeah.
They're not any pure class. I mean, in the battle for Undercity the first time after the Wrathgate, Jaina is the person that heals you throughout that whole scenario.
No.
Yeah, it's always been really vague with those characters.
It's like, what do we need them to do? Okay, they can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
moving on though, like I want to push a little further, if it's okay.
oh yeah.
Like after Lordaeron, like sort of after Lordaeron, when Sourfang stays behind to fight Anduin.
Yeah.
Right.
And basically gets beaten, or is ready to die, and Anduin actually stands for Sourfang's honor.
Right.
There's that weird moment in the trailer where Sourfang basically is asking for his honorable death. Anduin's like, I'm not killing you. And he says, that's not, my honor is not yours to decide. And he kneels down and says, this time it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting, I think it's a very interesting interaction that I got to very late, because I didn't play through any of the Alliance storyline for a long time because I was so busy getting things ready for expansion.
Right.
That when it finally happened, it sort of caught me off guard and leads into the Horde opening storyline for Battle for Azeroth, when you go to save Talanji from the stockades.
And they make a pit stop and try and save Sourfang first.
Yeah, but he's like,
nope, I won't. I'm not a part of her Horde.
He also, he specifically says, yeah, we both know you're not here for me. We both know Sylvanas didn't send you here for me.
Right, but there were no undead on that mission, except for Nathanos, and he wasn't there.
Yeah.
They specifically make a pit stop. It's like, Sourfang, we're here. We can get you out.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think, you're with Thalysra and the troll who I can't remember his name. But he's, a side character who's not super important.
Right.
And, they're both like, oh shit, it's Sourfang. He's the leader of the orcs. We should probably save him.
Yeah.
They don't know about Sylvanas' plans.
Yeah. Yeah, because they all thought he was dead.
Yeah. But did they know he was dead?
They
it's
thought.
assumed.
When you're Horde, when you were playing through the Siege of Lordaeron, you go in with Sylvanas. And, you just know that Sourfang stood alone against the Alliance.
Yeah, and Bane closes the door and is like, you left him out there to die.
Yeah, as a player, obviously, Sourfang's not dead yet. We're not going to see him die we're not going to let him die off screen. But,
oh, no.
But, still, we have no idea what happened to him, until you play the Alliance side, or until you go raid the prison.
Yeah.
Exactly. You don't realize. And so I'm actually curious what's going to happen when Bane finds out that Sourfang is still alive.
Yeah.
Because Bane was really close to turning his back on Sylvanas. Yeah. And if he had Sourfang there to sort of back him in that decision, I think he would have.
What do we think about I was like, okay, so we're going to get to see a bad side of the Alliance, and they are going to raze Lordaeron to the ground. Nope. Nope. Yeah, it was Sylvanas again.
Yeah. Which I think was ultimately, when I read the novella, at least the portion I read, suddenly it all made sense. She was consolidating power in Kalimdor. She knew exactly what was going to have to happen to Lordaeron from that moment. She knew that, look, we can't hold what we're doing to the Alliance, keeping them off Kalimdor, is what we're going to have to do and exit Eastern Kingdoms, which also means
they're not going to let us.
It also means sort of abandoning Silvermoon.
Yeah, but the Alliance abandoned Exodar as well.
Silvermoon.
Yeah.
The Alliance did abandon the Exodar. The Ghostlands seem like a difficult terrain to work through.
Yeah, I feel like this whole thing is just we're just gonna pretend Exodar and Silvermoon just don't exist.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
we can't fly there, so they don't matter.
Well, they are not easy targets for the same reason canonically you could not access them in vanilla. Silvermoon was on the other side of the Ghostlands, and Exodar is off in some island that we just haven't taken a look at yet. So
Yeah, basically.
yeah,
It's also like
what's on that island? Nothing.
It's also like at this point the Exodar is kind of not really the home of the Draenei anymore. It's like they have
a ship
the
now,
Vindicar
like a
now.
working ship now. Yeah.
Which where was the Vindicar during
Right.
all of this?
No, seriously, that's a great question because now the Draenei basically have a floating. It's not a floating city the way Dalaran is, but it's essentially they can all get there. And where the hell is that ship? That could have been really, really helpful. You know,
In
when
evacuation
or when Teldrassil was
Yeah.
just burning in general.
Yeah.
Or just like in the Siege of Lordaeron, it's like, oh, there's a flying ship showing up. Is it Velen? Nope,
Yes.
it's Jaina levitating a boat.
Right.
Like,
There's
could have
it's
had the
just one of those.
Vindicar.
It wasn't even mentioned in the novellas. It's sort of glossed over. But at some point, we're gonna have to take a look at the fact that okay, Sylvanas has the Blight. The Alliance have a freaking spaceship.
Yeah. Velen went on a party cruise and shows up every now and then, so we don't know.
Right.
Well, I mean, Velen was in Stormwind during Elegy. So, and he was just like, I'm worried about my people. But we'll get them out later. Obviously, the Night Elves are the priority. It's like, where'd you put that ship? Where'd you park the Vindicar there, Velen?
I parked it somewhere and I can't remember where. I
Guys,
can't
the
find my
prophet's getting really old. All right. So Sylvanas blows up Undercity.
One thing
Yeah.
I was curious
Oh, yeah?
about, and so if you play the Siege of Orgrimmar on Horde side, pretty much like immediately after she fires off the Blight, there's a lot of stuff that happens after that, but like you come back into the courtyard, and Sylvanas is like, "Where did Saurfang go?" And he's not, because he's not there, and then he doesn't show up again until
They make
the
their
Alliance
retreat.
fights him. So I don't.
Well, no, I mean,
I highly doubt this is going.
He is there when you are headed as a Horde person headed
Yeah.
into the Undercity, and he says, "I'm going to stay out here fighting," and she says, "All right, die."
Yeah, but there's like a good chunk of time there where he's just gone, and like I personally don't think it's going to get addressed by Blizzard,
she
but
releases the
I'm
Blight.
curious just
She releases
hell
the
does he
Blight,
go?
and then he abandons her. Like, he sees that, and he's just like, "I'm done.
yeah.
I am so done with this."
I'm just curious where he went during that like 15-minute time
I don't-
period where he was
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Yeah,
a thing. I
disappeared.
think he just left. Like, he's just,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go take a shower. Just like,
Well, he was
Get
on
this
the
light
he
off
was on
me.
the boat at the end, right?
No, he wasn't.
no,
Or-
I don't think so.
I don't think
Was
so.
he? He might have been. I'll have to rewatch that. So she may have known he was alive if he was on the boat at the
yeah.
end. Like,
No, I don't think he was
'cause they
I
were
don't think he
looking
was
at each
visible,
other.
At least.
Okay, they were
Yeah.
looking at each other.
Yeah.
Their groups. All right, so that's Siege of Lordaeron. Anybody else have any comments?
One thing that I just think is cool, the fact that like if you go to Tirisfal Glades after completing it, it's completely wiped.
Is it a crater? Like, I haven't been.
It's not a crater. The entire ruins of Lordaeron are filled with blight, and if you land in there, it kills you in like 5 seconds.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
And the whole like scar up to it is still there, and there are blighted soldiers that are enemies that are just walking around, the little skeletons with armor on them.
Do you know if
which is
you can
kinda
go
cool.
in there as an undead? That'd be interesting. Because
I
undead
haven't
can survive
tried.
the blight, right?
I haven't tried, so I'm not sure. That would be an interesting choice.
See, I don't think even undead can technically survive the blight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because even they were wearing gas masks.
They were. That's true. Yep.
I'm looking at the end of the video now just to see.
They don't need to breathe underwater, but they need gas masks for the blight.
Right?
That is a fair point, but you know.
Okay, no, he's not on the surface of the ship when they're
Yeah.
looking at each other.
Yeah, which
But I did find before I started looking at this video, had something I was going to bring up. No, I can't remember. Carry on. It'll come back.
Okay.
One other thing I wanted to just point out was the Azerite machine felt really underwhelming. Like, they've been playing up the power of Azerite this whole time, and this is a machine that Sylvanas has built specifically to harness the power of Azerite, and it was like, okay, it's dead.
Well,
like, it was so underwhelming.
Yeah, well, we're also in the beginning to see what Azerite can do. They're like, even during Battle for Azeroth, we are seeing them continually experiment with what Azerite can do. So I imagine we'll see more as time goes on. They're lacing it, like they're lacing gunpowder with it a lot. Yeah. And apparently that's the most common thing. Or like coating bladed weapons with it or stuff like that.
It seems like the main thing that they've been using with this, like, let's just
it's just like a secret ingredient that you put in all your harmful products.
Right, for now, until it can be further developed and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And we are absorbing it into our chesticles to save Azeroth. So,
anyone notice the Flava Flav size of that heart of Azeroth when you first pick it up too? Like, I thought I was gonna walk around with a grandfather clock around my neck.
Yo, Blizzard, why give us an artifact that we can't even see?
Right.
Alright, so Heart of Azeroth, you are called to Silithus by Magni Bronzebeard, and whose beard is no longer bronze. And we go down to what, Titan Room 101? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't really say where it is. It's just the heart chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somewhere I would assume like center of the earth kind of thing.
Yeah. Probably something like that.
So, anything about that? I mean, it was pretty cut and dry. Like you get the Heart of Azeroth, you absorb Azerite into it, and it is explained to us that is basically how we are saving, like, that Heart of Azeroth, our neck piece it's like a siphon that goes directly back into Azeroth as a healing agent.
So we're just cool to just carry around her heart just all over the place, you know.
Right. It's not safer in this chamber that's only accessible from this single point. It's much safer if we take it actively into war.
Yeah.
What?
Right, but like, okay, that is taking it directly to the Azerite.
Yeah.
As opposed to going to get the Azerite and shipping it back.
I mean, why do we need it again? Like, really? Like, why did we have to have it?
Look, Philip, look. Can I explain to you the dangers of global warming and climate change? Could you please just take a seat and we're going to talk about this?
They give us something because we just have to have something. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it is.
I mean, it is like it's tacked on.
We're eco warriors, Philip.
Like I think we're
by your powers combined.
I think we're gonna get more of that story later because so far we've had
that's the main story
hasn't really progressed at all.
Yeah, I mean
but he is one of the main factions.
Yeah, that
you can gain reputation with.
That is the main story, and it's going to be unfolding over time. It's probably going to be the last raid, you know.
Yeah. And we're definitely going to deal with it partially in the first raid because the first raid is a Titan. It's a
old
Titan
deer, yeah, and the armor looks dope.
Like the final boss.
Final
boss is basically a fabricated old god that the Titans made as an experiment.
Yeah, but it's that overarching, like the old gods and healing Azeroth champion. That's the overarching story, under which you have the Kultiran and the Zandalar stories and the Alliance versus Horde story. All of that is secondary to the overarching story. They got a lot going on.
Yeah.
So
also, that launch was so smooth. That was
Yeah,
the
dude.
smoothest
Yeah.
launch I have ever
So
played in this game.
me, Philosophy, and Shadow Obsidian were hanging out in a group. We were going to start the content together, and we were just hanging out in front of the sword. And then we all of a sudden got a message from Magni. Like, it was seamless.
It was just it was like that. There wasn't a disconnect or anything. And even like playing through content for the first couple bit, like there
Which
was
is
very
great,
little lag. There was
considering how 8.0 went. 8.0.
Oh my god. Worst pre-patch I've ever seen. Seriously, worst pre-patch launch I have ever experienced.
Yeah, it was
in
bad.
The 14 years of this game. But I've been playing through now, played through both sides, and I've encountered now some other people. I have a couple of guildies that like to just complain about everything.
Right.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, I'm talking about you. You know who you are. You complain about everything. Everything. You could win $1 million and complain about having to go pick it up. Anyway, so
I would complain about the taxes, but whatever.
well, you won $1 million. So what if you only get 750,000 of it? That's more than you had. So, but the point is, they were complaining about, the disc. I had to drop this quest 3 times before I could actually complete it because it glitched out.
Yeah.
I was like, is that literally the only problem you encountered in an expansion launch?
The
Yeah.
Warlord's
God.
launch was so bad.
Yeah, it was not good. It was. There were lots of problems, disconnects. I don't think I actually got to play for 2 days when Warlords dropped.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, I agree. Great launch.
Mm-hmm.
For all of the bad that happened in 8.0, the launch of the expansion was perfect.
Yeah.
So we got called. We were on Horde duty, and we got called back to Orgrimmar after we talked to Magni and got our fancy new necky lace. And we find out that we are going on a super secret mission, guys. We are going to infiltrate Stormwind and rescue a prisoner. Don't know who.
A political prisoner.
Yeah, a political prisoner. We don't know who it is. We don't find out until we meet them. And they are the Zandalari trolls. So we break into the stockade. And
Princess Talanji.
Yep.
And then
Princess
the Prophet Zool.
Zool. Oh, Zool. We'll have
Who
lots to
has
say
a lot
about
of
him
story
later.
behind him.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
talk about him later. But what'd you guys think of the prison break?
It was fun.
I thought it was pretty awesome getting to go to Wakanda. I mean, Xandar.
Yeah. The cinematic where they are escaping and they wreck the Alliance fleet, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty cool. And, so I read the novella after I've played the launch.
Yep.
And so it's really funny. Now it all makes sense. Sylvanas doesn't care about the Zandalari trolls. She doesn't care about them. They are a means to an end. They talk about in that novella multiple times the fact that their fleet has been destroyed. They need ships.
Yep.
The Zandalari trolls are a quick way to a large fleet.
Right.
Yep.
And both of the factions are following that. I mean,
Exactly.
like, you go to the 2 best naval forces remaining in the world after Legion, and that is the Zandalari trolls and the Kultirans.
I'm curious to see how that's going to culminate and how that's going to play out in game, because this is all building up to be a very large naval conflict between both sides, and so I'm interested to see how that plays out.
I want a
in
ship.
game.
I want a ship.
Look, okay, and this is where
instead of class halls, we get a ship.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going to slightly deviate. This is where I'm going to talk about my personal WoW experience and philosophy and how I've always played this game. Alliance side, I need people to understand my love of dwarves. If you're not actually friends with me and we've never talked about it, every character I have that's Alliance that can be dwarf is a dwarf.
Which is everything except a druid. And a demon hunter.
And demon hunter. The rest of them are dwarves. I love dwarves. I love their storyline. I like the aesthetic. I like the philosophy. I like everything about them. I want to be Kultiran now. That's you need to understand what a serious statement that is for me to say. I want to be Kultiran. I am right now. I'm playing Paladin. Right now, it's looking unlikely that Kultirans are going to get Paladins. I am going to change my main to something that Kultirans can be.
I'm very excited for both Kultirans and Zandalari trolls because both of those druid forms look amazing.
So I was going to mention something. So now, like you said, you hadn't gotten all the way done with Alliance side. Have you started the Pride of Kultiras storyline?
I have watched all of the cinematics already.
All right, this isn't a cinematic, but you meet the leader of the druid faction.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really cool.
I'm ready. I'm psyched. I've loved everything about Kultiras. Oh, by the way, I can't main a druid. I can't do it.
Oh,
I just can't do it.
The druid
Everyone
forms.
plays a druid.
I love the druid forms in Kultiras.
Yeah.
Like I love the Kultiras druid forms.
Once those two factions are released, I'm making a druid on both of them because the Zandalari troll druid forms look so cool. I want a tank as a turtle.
Yes, I will probably pay the money to race change both of my druids. I won't level one from scratch, but I'll pay for the race change. I will be leveling from scratch a Kultiran though, because that heritage armor.
Armor.
Yeah, oh my god!
You gotta get that jacket.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
it's just so good.
Yeah. I really wish Zandalari was going to get Paladin. I think it would be so
They haven't
good.
said that they aren't yet.
Yeah, but
They have announced what the Zandalari races are going to be.
But here's the deal. Okay. If Zandalari got Paladin, that would mean that they could be every class that was available at launch of WoW. Every one of them. Every of the original classes. No race has ever gotten all of that.
Okay, so, alright, I have a counter argument. Alliance has access via an allied race to every class, except for Death Knight and Demon Hunter. Or does not.
Yeah, none of the allied races on Horde side can be Paladins.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that's a major that's
an oversight.
Flaw. Yeah, I think they haven't given Horde a new Paladin race, but they are giving what's looking like they have given Alliance at least 2 more Shaman classes or races. Because I can already put it out there. I feel pretty confident based on the storyline in Kultiras, there are going to be Kultiran Shamans.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah, like especially if you play through the and we're not really talking about the opening sequences. We're just talking about general. I'm cool with this. We're just talking about general impressions on the expansion. But yeah, especially if you play through the Storm Wake zone.
Storm Song Valley.
Those are shamans and mages all around.
Yeah.
So
I think we'll get those. I think that's solid. Now, in the dungeon, in one of the dungeons, that you do encounter a mob that is basically a Kultiran Templar.
Yep.
And Templar are basically Paladins, but they're not called Paladins. I still don't think that's enough to say they're going to get Paladins.
They're essentially guards for the Stormwake dungeon.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I'm disappointed. I really wanted them to be Paladins because I really like Paladins right now, but I'm very serious that I will change my main to whatever they can be.
I have to be able to tank, so if it were me, I'd be Druid. I have to be
a warrior.
I can't tank warrior right now.
Yeah,
I know Prot Warrior basically doesn't exist, so they need to fix it for me to do it.
Yeah.
But if they don't fix Prot Warrior, I'm probably gonna go Rogue. Just gonna be a Rogue.
Outlaw Rogue.
Just gonna be a swashbuckler.
Yeah.
Just do
it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Give me my ship.
Makes sense. Outlaw Rogue. It was. I mean, isn't Outlaw like one of the newer ones?
Yeah, it was introduced in Legion.
It replaced combat.
It's combat.
Okay. Well, they called it Outlaw because they knew they were going to bring Kultirans in, I bet.
That's possible. It's definitely very interesting. I like the idea of it, but
So okay, since we're just talking about impressions and stuff, I think I've talked to both of you.
Do we want to talk about the Alliance intro?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of got off of it. I was going with the vibe, but the Alliance also had a prison break for their opening sequence, Apparently, some of the ally players got jealous of the Horde's prison break questline.
Well, I think important to talk about is like, so Horde comes to Zandalar and they get a. They don't exactly get a warm welcome, but the king is like, okay, we'll work with you. You can prove yourself. The Alliance comes to Kul Tiras and they're immediately like, you're going to prison.
Well, okay. Well, for what it's worth, they're immediately going to prison because of how they still, just like we talked about last time, how they viewed Jaina Proudmoore.
Yeah.
Yep.
Having gone all the way through that storyline, though, we know how that ends, how that works out, which I think is going to be fascinating to play politically later. So, this is a podcast where we believe in spoilers, correct?
I have not played the Jaina.
Not for each other.
Oh, you're killing me! You're killing me!
I'm okay. I'm in the middle of it, but you have to do every dungeon to progress that storyline.
Yeah, you do.
And those queues take so long as DPS. I was in that queue for an hour and a half yesterday.
Dude, tank it.
I am playing
tank it.
Prot. Let me know if you need help. I will tank you through those.
Tank it.
Oh,
speaking
it's
of,
gonna be hard to cover this that I really feel like we need to cover without spoiling a small thing.
I think we should cover it later.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so what I sort of
imagine
imagine us doing is like next week we should talk about 2 of the zones in depth, one of the Zandalar zones and one of the Kul Tiras zones.
Yeah,
and
Dressvar.
Dressvar is amazing, guys.
Well, I think we should be careful about that because I think some of those zones are gonna take more time than others.
Dressvar is amazing.
I
think
am
that should be a
done
whole
with
show.
all of them.
I haven't done Nazmir is the only one I haven't done yet.
That's fine.
Same.
That's not bad.
It's the only one I haven't done yet. I'm on the cusp of finishing Storm Song Valley.
Yeah.
And I've got to go to Nazmir next.
But I also didn't do all of the quests. I did all of the storylines.
Yeah.
Like all of
I did all of the quests in Zuldazar, all of the quests in Storm Song, and I've almost done all of the quests in Vol'dun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to finish one zone Horde side, and I've got to finish leveling Alliance side. I haven't even finished that yet. So, but that's going to be soon as we're done here. I'm level grinding, so I've got a level and a half to go.
Yeah. I'm gonna be level grinding some people as well.
So next week, what do we want to talk about?
So I'm thinking Tier Guard sound is the most natural to begin with in Kul Tiras, I think.
It gives us the plot hooks sort of into other zones. So
I think the natural way to do it is like once you get to the Pride of Kul Tiras, whatever order they make you do the dungeons in, that's the order you should talk about the zone. Like that's the order you should do the zones in. I don't know why that came up with me, but that's Tier Guard sound, Storm Song Valley, and then Dressvar. Dressvar's so good.
Dressvar is very good.
Look.
I think
it's my new favorite zone.
Nalik has keep telling me that Jaina is Bay. No, Dressvar. Dressvar is Bay.
Yeah.
No.
You don't see Jaina the entire time. Let
you
me be clear about that.
At the end, you will.
I have her now. I've seen her now.
Okay.
But like you don't see her the entire time.
She's still Bay, and seriously, just to add just a small thing, and we'll talk about it when we talk about Dressvar. The dungeon at the end of Dressvar, the manor.
So good.
Best dungeon ever.
Yeah, so far I've really enjoyed the dungeon design.
Yeah.
Did you do the Dressvar one?
Yes, I've done
the manor. Yeah.
Have you done it more than once?
Does it
it changes order.
The order of the bosses change.
Yeah, I noticed that like there were all the different doors, and I was like, I bet some of them are locked.
Sometimes they're you have different ones open.
Yeah, it seems a lot like the what was it, the Archway in
Legion,
how that changed.
You didn't know which way at the beginning, but it was one of two options. This one is one of many options.
It's 3.
It's very like haunted house. That just
it
to reference
made,
the game.
It reminded me a lot of Luigi's Mansion.
Play Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
I've heard of it, but I have not played it.
Okay, it's an old game. It's from the 90s. I've been watching some. I wish I remember their name. I'd give them a shout out right now. She's been playing through Bloodlines on Mixer, and it's an old game. So to see someone playing through it is kind of cool.
I played the tabletop with you one time.
Yeah, she's also playing through as a Nosferatu, which is like the hardest way to play the game. So
they're
we
ugly.
won't even talk about that. Yeah, you can't be seen by people, basically. But there's a whole portion of that game near the beginning where there's a haunted like seaside hotel that you have to go through and battle through. That scene won like dozens of awards for game design and music and horror, and the manor in WoW reminds me of that.
Yeah.
And it's beautifully done. It passes original Sunken Temple as my favorite 5-man of all time.
Yeah. Also, like, just talking about Drusvar, I think that's the most unique zone I have ever played through in WoW. There is nothing else in the game like it.
Welcome to Dressvar Talk. Where
Yes.
forevermore
This is our
we talk
new
about
podcast
every
where we
little
only talk
thing.
about Drusvar.
How great is Lillian Waycrest?
Yeah. We're going to deviate, though. We'll talk so much more about that later.
Yeah.
So we're going to do Tiergard Sound, Horde side, which, what are we going to do?
Probably
Should be
Zuldazar.
Zuldazar. Yeah.
Zuldazar? Okay.
Yep. It's a good story too.
And I want to talk about WoW politics in the next one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do allied race speculation too. That was something I was going to touch on today.
Ooh, yeah, I wish they would give me at least like an idea of when they're going to drop Cold Tyranny.
Yeah, I have no
Yeah.
idea when. I'm talking about like we need to guess what's going to be the 5th allied races, which I think I've talked with you guys about that.
Volpera and
Sethrak.
Volpera and Sneeple.
I think Sethrak for sure.
But my one thing with the Sethrak is, like, how are they going to make helmet models fit on them?
Same way they make boots
Taurens.
fit on trolls and Tauren.
Fair.
Taurens have
won't.
helmets. I mean, yeah, it's gonna,
But what about so we have those two races that we run into on Horde side. What about Alliance side?
Sethrak are going to be in
I think
alliance.
Sethrak are going to be Alliance.
They're going to be an
Really?
alliance allied race. Yeah, so we talked about that. We can actually just cover this now. I talked about this with Nalek. When you do the foothold into Vol'dun, the alliance and the Sethrak bond pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And
But they're also they're very clearly like a neutral party.
yeah, I mean, but like just because those are going to be the first two they think that come out, and the Volpir are so clearly going to be Horde, they think Sethrak's going to be Alliance.
That's fair.
Because they've already stated that they want more scary looking races for the Alliance and more cute looking races for the Horde.
They want
That's
the
fair.
Alliance to not look like they're completely racist and bigoted towards ugly people. It's all it really amounts to.
Yep.
I also want to talk about, just because this is me, and y'all can nix this idea if you want to, I want to talk about the toxic nature of body shaming on some of the WoW forums about Kultiran female models.
I think it's
I'm
retarded.
actually getting actively
So
angry
dumb.
about
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I think
No.
I think it's a good thing that they're giving more options for.
Great.
Yeah,
We
models,
have humans
because-
that don't look like every other human.
Also,
Yeah.
WoW has been absolutely terrible about sexual dimorphism since its creation. Like all of those armor models that look like normal armor on males, but look like, blue
Yeah.
plates on females. Like WoW has a history of being really, really bad about like sexist armor models and stuff like that. So it's good to see them.
It should be an option. It should be like something you can click as a female
raise that.
character, like sexy armor or no sexy armor.
Did you guys notice when you were playing through the Dark Shore line that there were some Night Elf males in super skimpy armor?
I didn't.
Some of the Night Elf
think so.
NPCs were in the basically female Sentinel armor, like the.
Oh, that's too funny.
Okay, well,
Which
we
was
can't talk
great.
about males not having sexy armor anymore because the Zandalari,
Yes,
questing
the
armor?
Zandalari
the plate.
plate armor looks so ridiculous.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I went AFK and my blood elf started dancing on my screen, and it was sensual. Like.
I mean, it's
it
basically
looks
like
bad.
It's like a crop top and a mini skirt.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
And that is why I'm transmog to that look right now on my blood elf. Just kidding.
You
know
play
I
a
am
female
transmog,
blood
but-
elf too.
But But yeah, I play a female blood elf too, so it's really ridiculous looking. But I transmogged to it because I felt like it fit the spirit of the expansion.
Yeah, that's why I'm
like,
wearing it. But I hate. I want to get the dungeon set so that I don't have to wear that anymore.
Yeah,
yeah.
There's nothing practical about it.
Yeah, it is really nice to see though to see the art department like doing a better job.
I mean, I'm always a fan of more variety, whatever that variety may be. So.
Yes, I agree. And to all of those people that may watch this and are complaining about the a little more healthy models of the female Colterans, if you want to play a super skinny female, play a regular human. Get over it.
You can also play a super skinny Colterian female. I mean, you can change.
I know there's a male option. Is there a super skinny female option?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know if that information has been revealed publicly yet.
Oh wait, I would imagine. I guess I'm just guessing. I would imagine if they had it on the men's side.
It seems like because the males have the like, big burly model, and then there's also like the super skinny model, which is also just like the Forsaken female model, just retextured.
Right, exactly.
Which I think, I don't know if we'll be able to choose between different body types as Colterans. It would be cool if we can. But
I know you can choose different body types as male.
Yeah, I think that's actually going to be an option. I don't know if it's going to be one of those things that at character creation you have to decide and you're stuck with it, or if it'll be something you can actually toggle via the barbershop like you can orc. Upright.
Yeah, I would imagine they would treat it like upright orcs.
Just go find a chiropractor.
Yeah, I think you. Yeah.
Because I mean, the argument, oh well, you're fundamentally changing the entire appearance of the class by going skinny to heavier. Well, you are that with an orc too. It's not like you can just wake up one day and say you want to stand upright.
No, my back.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, guys, we're gonna call it there. It's been a great hour, almost hour and a half. Looks like. We got a little off.
To cover.
Yeah, we got a little off topic, but that's what I want this podcast to be. Just rambling about what is going on in Azeroth. So we will see you guys next week. And
we'll be covering either Tierguard Sound or Zul'Zar.
I think we'll be trying to hit both. We will be actually digging into some of the actual content in Battle for Azeroth. So thanks so much, guys, for hanging out. And we will see you on the next Flavor Text podcast. Guys, you doing anything today, stream-wise? I will be streaming immediately after this, helping some of my buds hit max level on Horde.
I will not be streaming today, but I might be streaming tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll be Alliance leveling and probably going to be streaming. And I'm also going to be cleaning up this mess behind me. Apparently, it can be... I was looking at my screen a second ago. You can see all of the, cables and junk. Yeah, I've been, it's like, oh, it's so terrible. See, I've been working on, let's see if I can get it in the shot, my guitar pedal board over there.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess right now, and so, but it's together. Yeah, but it's together now, and so I need to clean up all the mess from putting it together.
All right, guys, so be sure to go follow Renegade, be sure to go follow Nalik. You're on my channel, so I guess you can follow me, whatever. And we will see you guys soon. Bye.
Later.
See ya.